Welcome back to English 4.0, the radio show. Let's go! Intermediate. Hello and welcome back to the program Intermediate, class number 153 today. And we're going to get started with a little review of yesterday's content. We ran out of time yesterday. I must admit, we ran out of time. We didn't get to that last point, so we will get to it today. The last thing we saw, right before our vocabulary, was we were talking about ages, people's age. So I said, for example, if John is 52, we can say he's in his early 50s. He's in his early 50s. She's in her late 30s. He's in his mid-40s. So typically we say early, mid, and late. 50s, 60s, 70s, 20s. And then, of course, the teens. When you're 13, from when you're 13 until the age of 19, you're in your teens. They're in their teens. They're teenagers. So a teenager, logically, is someone who is in their teens. If you're 18 or 19, you can be in your late teens. And then you turn, cumplir, you turn 20. After 19, you turn 20. And you're in your early 20s. When you're 20, 21, 22, you're in your early 20s. And then your mid-20s. 24, 25, 26, you're in your mid-20s. And then comes, of course, your late 20s. And people say that once you hit your 30s, it starts to get harder to stay thin, they say. I'm around that level myself, around that part of my life. And, my brother is telling me, another year or two and you're going to find it difficult to stay thin, he tells me. Yeah. So anyway, early 30s, mid-30s, late 30s, early 40s. For example, Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley, now, when he died, he was 42. So you can say he was in his early 40s. Zapatero. Now, he was born in 1960, so he's 50. He's 50 years old. We could say he's in his early 50s. But really, when someone is 50, we just say, they're 50. Okay. But he'll be in his early 50s for a few years. John Travolta. And it's amazing, Nacho came up with it yesterday. 56. So he's in his mid-50s. Or I think maybe Nacho guessed 58. Late 50s. But he's in his mid-50s. Bob Geldof. I think I was talking about Bob Geldof the other day on, maybe it was my other program, The Verb Circus. I was talking about Bob Geldof, who was responsible for organizing Live Aid, which was a concert, first one concert, then I suppose many, but it was a concert to raise awareness for poverty and crises in the world, and it helped sort of establish the idea of celebrities lending their support to various charitable causes and really taking that to the next level. Now, as we move into the next part of the class, this part we didn't get to, we were talking specifically about, the last part of class 152 talks specifically about people's ages and when they live. So, for example, John Lennon was born in October of 1940, and he died on the 8th of December, 1980. So I can say that he was 40 when he died. Yeah, he was only 40 when he died. Now, Hitler was born in April of 1889, and he died in 1945, of course, April 30th of 1945, at the age of 56. So he died when he was 56. Winston Churchill, born in 1874 and died in 1965, so he died when he was 90. He was 90 when he died. Winston Churchill, Sir Winston Churchill, was 90 when he died. He died at the age of 90. John Wayne. John Wayne. Interesting, actually born under the name Marion Mitchell Morrison, but of course, better known as John Wayne. Born in May of 1907 and died in 1979, so he was 72 when he died. How about George Washington? Born in 1732, and he died in December of 1799, so he was 67 years old. 60. Now, I don't expect you to do the math here. I must admit, I remember recording this on television, and this point is a little bit tricky. I don't really expect you to instantly do these mathematical calculations in your head. It's not a math course. But I'll tell you, I'll let you in on a secret. When we were recording this for television, we actually put behind me, the student was in front of me, and it was Luca. Luca she was the student on television, and I was giving her dates, and the student, according to the guide, you're supposed to come up with the date, or the age of the person when they died. So, of course, you simply do the math, but sometimes it's tricky, and especially when you have a television camera in front of you and someone says, okay, George Washington, 1732 to 1799, and you're expected to quickly, well, that one's not so difficult, but you're expected to quickly come up with the age of the person. So what we did was, well, we cheated a little bit, and we had one of the production people at Aprende Inglés Television put the ages on a little miniature whiteboard, and this person held up the whiteboard kind of behind me, or between me and the camera, of course on the other side where the camera couldn't capture this, but held up the name of the person and the age when they died. So I gave the dates, and then she was able to sort of pretend that she was doing the math in her head and look at that and say, okay, George Washington was 67 when he died. Of course, this is fine because it's not a math class. It's not about mathematics. It's about English, of course, right? So George Washington died when he was 67. He died at the age of 67, we can say as well. All right, so there you go. I just let you in on a little secret, some behind-the-scenes secrets from what happened in the filming there. But that was a fun day of filming with Luca. I remember that program. Now it's time to move on and take a look at our word of the day. Word of the day. All right, it's time for the word of the day. Our word of the day today is stubborn, which is terco, testarudo. Stubborn. He's a very stubborn person. Yeah. My brother can be stubborn sometimes. Sometimes. I think most people can be stubborn sometimes. I can be stubborn sometimes. Stubborn. Yeah, so if someone is stubborn, we also say it's very similar to being hard-headed. Cabezota. Hard-headed. They know what they want and they just keep insisting for it, sometimes maybe a little too much. But I think there's some good to that. You have to be driven towards your goals, and determined. But sometimes people go a little bit too far and become a bit stubborn. Stubborn. All right, now as we move into class number 153, we see the verb to allow. to allow, which is essentially the same as to let. To allow. Permitir. This is a verb that I spent a whole program on, the verb circus. I spent a whole show talking about this verb. In fact, comparing let with allow. And basically, what you have to know is that with allow, we can say allow to. Thank goodness they allowed me to bring my books. They allowed me to bring my telephone into the library or whatever. To allow someone to, infinitive, allow me to do it, allow me to go there. They allowed us to discuss it first. So this is the same as the verb to let, essentially, but with let, we don't use to. You cannot put to after let. So, for example, and we'll try this exercise when we practice with let in a few classes, but what I always practice with let with my students by saying, when I was young, my mother didn't allow me to drink beer. And the student says, when you were young, your mother didn't let you drink beer. So she didn't allow me to drink beer. She didn't let me drink. So she didn't let me, no to, infinitive. But with allow, we use to. So are you allowed to smoke in offices now in Spain? No. No, you're not allowed to smoke in offices. Were you allowed to drink beer when you were 12? No. I wasn't allowed to drink beer when I was 12. Would you allow your kids to smoke when they're 10 years old? Or will you, I suppose? Imagine you have young children. Will you allow them to smoke when they're 10? No, I won't allow them to smoke when they're 10. Are you allowed to drive more than 110 kilometers per hour? Are you allowed to drive more than 110 kilometers per hour? Faster than 110 kilometers per hour? No. Well, it depends on the road. I think on most, I suppose on the highway. I think on the highway you're allowed to drive, 120? I don't drive a car in Spain, so I'm not an expert. But in Canada, you're not allowed to drive more than 110 kilometers per hour on the highway. But I'll admit, people do. Now, I say highway. We have highway. British people often say motorway. In the United States, they often say freeway or interstate, which is a highway that's, digamos, interestado, between states, interstate. Freeway, highway, motorway. So, the highway, carretera. Now, there are minor differences. Some are bigger than others, but I just say the highway myself, the highway. Are you allowed to drive? In Canada, you shouldn't drive more than 110 kilometers per hour on the highway. If you do, you can get a speeding ticket. Yeah. Here in Spain, I think a lot of the highways you're allowed to drive 120. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah. Are you allowed to steal? No, of course you're not allowed to steal. You're not allowed to. So to be allowed to. Okay. To allow, I should say. To allow and to be allowed to. All right, we'll practice this tomorrow. We'll review this concept. But let's move on now and take a look at our vocabulary of the day. Vocabulary of the day. All right, it's time for the vocabulary of the day. Our 5 words of vocabulary. Our first word today, path. What a wonderful word. In English, peace. Peace. Peculiar. Peculiar. We say peculiar. Peculiar. Politico. Politico is a politician. So lots of P words today. Politician. Politician. Politicians work in politics. Predicción. Predicción. Continuing with the P theme today. Predicción. Prediction. Prediction. Rentabilidad. Rentabilidad, we say profitability. profitability. All right, rentabilidad, profitability. Good. Now, moving on to the last part of our class, one more thing to do, and that's right, it is our translation list. Translation. All right, it's time for our translation list. List number 55 today. Translation list number 55. Number 1, mi jefe tiene un acento británico. My boss has a British accent. My boss, mi jefe. Now, not bus, boss, and not bus, autobus. Boss, not bus, no, boss, boss. My boss has a British accent. Number 2, se te cayó. You dropped it. You dropped it. Se te cayó. Number 3, me encanta mezclar bebidas. I love to mix drinks. I love to mix drinks. Number 4, no sé cómo ahorrar dinero. I don't know how to save money. I don't know how to save money. Number 5, siempre estás cambiando las reglas. You're always changing the rules. You're always changing the rules. Las reglas, the rules. You're always changing the rules. Number 6, hay polvo en todas partes. There's dust everywhere. There's dust everywhere. Number 7, no cambies de canal. Don't change the channel. Don't change the channel. Number 8. Interesting. Number 8. Vamos a emborracharnos. Vamos a emborracharnos. Let's get drunk. Well, with that in mind, I'd like to finish the program. Let's get drunk. I'm just reading the list here, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. And that's number 8 in our list. Let's get drunk. Well, anyway, I'm going to finish there. I'll be back in a few minutes. I can't get drunk because I've got to come back in a few minutes for the advanced class. We'll see you soon. Keep studying. Bye-bye.